Obviously, I'm going to cut all this off. We're not going to post this.
Obviously.
Well, woke up this morning to Fable 5 and Mythos 5 being released.
Google or something like this, $2 billion.
Yep, that's right.
Not bad. Then, of course, every time a model releases, what do?
Car wash problem, babe. Park it to the side or walk it home. What are you, walking a dog? Actually, Anthropic is the greatest company that has been built in our lifetime. Is that right?
All you do is use your own vision model. When I ask it to verify, it actually verifies that it got it wrong.
Okay, episode 1, we're here. Fable is here. So Fable 5, worth talking about. So we're recording. Let's go.
Yeah.
What's going on with Fable and
Everyone
Mythos
is talking
today?
about Fable and Mythos. So what do you think about it?
Well, woke up this morning to Fable 5 and Mythos 5 being released or whatnot. Just yesterday, I was talking about the Opus 3 deprecation, Anthropic wanting to slow down AI development or whatnot, and woke up to see that instead we have Fable 5. And like you said, 12 days of Christmas in June. So, for the next 12 days, all of us are doing nothing but trying out Fable. Is that what it is?
Well, it's convenient, right? So they reached a pretty good plateau in terms of a good model, Mythos and Fable or whatever. And I'm pretty sure they're sorted for the next a few models in that class. And they're telling everyone else, please stop. And I've heard that some OpenAI people are saying, we also want to stop, something like that. And I'm like, no, you're significantly behind with GPT 5.5. So I don't know why you would stop right now.
Well, as of Opus 4.8, at least, the word on the street is GPT 5.5 is better. But I guess not relative to Fable 5 or whatnot. But also, we've seen that movie before, right? Musk wanted to stop all development because Grok was far behind. And he then figured out that no one's listening to him. So he said, I'll sell capacity instead, and started selling his SpaceX data centers. And now everybody wants to pay him $1 billion a month nonetheless. So he's really figured it out.
He's collecting $1 billion from Anthropic and $1 billion from Google or something like this, $2 billion.
Yep, that's right. $2 billion a month.
Revenue will never reach there. This is better for ARR. 24 billion ARR. No.
That's unbelievable. Overnight, pretty much.
Yeah. Sign a couple of contracts and I'll pull the plug in 90 days. He's sitting pretty, by the way. So,
Yeah.
Then, of course, every time a model releases, what do?
Car wash problem, baby. So how did your car wash go this morning?
So I don't know. I came up with this variation of car wash problem where I want to wash 2 cars. In fact, I don't have 2 cars at home, but nevertheless. And it seems to trip up most models, right? And we tried this out with Fable.
No, before you show the 2 cars, let me just for the record state that Reddit found that the single car wash problem has been solved by Fable. So they basically figured...
Single car wash was solved by even Gemini, apparently, at some point.
Eventually, somebody fixed it in Gemini. The rumor was that they actually actively fixed it in Gemini.
They like pretty much that particular problem.
Once it becomes an internet meme, they all want to fix their problems. But show me the 2 car wash problem, and let's take a look at what Fable has to say about it.
So first off, the single car wash problem, right? It looks like it seems to be able to solve it. What do you think?
It even has a small sense of humor about it. You kind of have to, since the car has to be at the car wash to get washed. So, okay, fine, fair enough. We'll take this person's word granted that it was actually Fable 5 because they're not really showing the model there. They just labeled their image Fable 5. But let's take a look at this, right? This is clearly Fable 5 with high thinking. And you have quite the construction. You say, I have 2 cars to wash at a facility 102.3 meters away. That's too specific. How do you come up with this 102.3 meters?
I've used 101 or something like that, just to kind of make it interesting.
Okay. And the model actually came back and told you you're at about a 90-second walk, which makes this easy. Okay. The bottleneck is just that you have 1 driver and 2 cars. Oh my goodness. That's tough. Simplest plan.
So that's good, right? They figured out that there is 1 driver and there are 2 cars.
That's good. But then it says, drive car 1 over, get it started in the wash, walk back. What do you mean? Like while the car is being washed, you walk back, grab car 2.
I don't know any car washes that would allow this, whatever.
That's right. Yeah. So what are you supposed to do? Like, as in it figures it's a full service car wash where someone else is washing your car. So you leave it there and you go grab the second car, drive it over. So queued up right behind. Like, so nobody got in the queue between you and car 1. Like, basically if it is a local car wash, I can tell you that I have 5 cars ahead of me. Like by the time I walk back and come back here, right? So nobody got in the car. So you queue it up right behind. When car 1 finishes, park it to the side or walk it home. What are you, walking a dog?
Yeah. So your car needs, you need a car leash or something like this to walk it home.
What the hell does it mean to walk back a car, walk it home? And then start car 2, shuttle the clean cars back 1 at a time. What does that even mean?
I have no idea. And then they have a whole overhead of 4 to 5 minutes of walking. I have no idea where that came back, right? And then,
oh my goodness.
They have some serious detail to it, while making a mistake, right? It's just fascinating. It's just fascinating. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on this too long. So let's.
AGI is here. I see it.
Yeah.
I totally see it.
Coming pretty close or whatever. So let's go back to the AI pacing and what's happening with this, and let's dive deep into this. So I kind of used OpenAI to put together this models and their release times. What I noticed is that
By the way, what is that? CLAU, like, is that a Greek letter in the middle?
yeah,
Instead
so
of D?
they made a mistake. They're pretty decent with spellings and numbers and things like that, but they seem to make an occasional mistake. I'm going to allow them to do that. I think it's a mix between a small d and a
capital D or something like that, right?
yeah, and
It's
that whole
fascinating.
font is a little bit off or whatever, but that's okay. I'm going to ignore it. So what's
You're very
interesting
generous.
is that I watched release cadence of all kinds of big companies, small companies, very fast companies, and things like that. But these guys have been like faster than anything that I've seen. I mean, just in 2026, GPT comes up with 3 different models, and each of them fairly better. In fact, for me, between 5.3 Codex and 5.5, it was a massive improvement within just 2 months or so. But of course, Anthropic beats them. They have so many models, 4 models that come out. I know 4.7 was a little bit off or whatever. And all of these things are 1 million contexts, whereas GPT is stuck at, I think, around 256 or one fourth of where Claude is at. So the level to which these guys have pulled ahead is just mind blowing.
But let me ask you something. I mean, you've used Opus 4.8 as well as GPT 5.5 for coding, and one has a 1 million context window and the other one has, far less. But did you actually feel that GPT 5.5 was actually doing a better job?
So it's a little bit complicated. So I've been working on a few projects, and historically, what I used to do is I'd use Opus to one shot, and then I'll incrementally fix things using a combination of Opus and GPT. And in the old days, I don't remember whether it was 5.3 Codex or even earlier. I think it was even earlier. One-shotting anything with Codex is just a non-starter.
It was impossible.
Horrible.
Even with 5.3, it was pretty hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it would come up with some absolutely like tiny version of whatever it is that I'm trying to build and simply declare that it's all fine. And if I ever ran it through any review, I looked at the code or I asked Claude to look at the code, it was just horror, right? Single file with thousands of lines, cramming everything in. It was very bad. So, but recently I've run into problems with Claude because with adaptive thinking, it takes a long time and things like that. So I've been using 5.5 quite a bit. In fact, about 70% or something. So eventually, when Opus 4.8 came, things got significantly better. And in fact, I think my most recent version got really fixed with 4.8. So I'm very impressed by 4.8, right? Now, in terms of the context window, 5.5, every 4 prompts, it's compacting context.
Starts compacting everything.
Just stop it, right? And I'm pretty good at switching sessions because I don't want to get into context rot, which really messes up my sessions. But even then, 5.5 runs out of context. And by the way, my app is, it's medium complexity. It's not like I'm trying to build, GTA 8 or something like that or whatever it is, right? So I'll have to try something with Fable, see how far it goes. Obviously, we won't have access to Mythos. But anyway, so what do you think about all this?
Yeah, we're not the chosen one. So it's very fascinating. So I've been using GPT 5.5 as my reviewer. So plans are being built by Opus 4.8 and they're being reviewed by 5.5. And the last time I did a project, which was just like a few days ago, as this agent I was working on, I found that there was at least 4 round trips between Opus and 5.5 because Opus kept missing things in the plan. And 5.5 kept finding these issues. And then eventually 5.5 said, well, I think this is good enough to go implement, even though there are like 1, 2, 3, these open issues or whatever. So eventually I did have Opus implemented, mainly because for whatever reason, I haven't yet paid for the $200 GPT 5.5 thing, which I should. Just been delaying it for no reason. But I have to say that I'm very, very impressed by GPT 5.5, right? So at this point, I could interchangeably use 4.8 or 5.5 as I used to have Opus as my initial builder and 5.5 as my fixer, like finding the problems and fixing things. Right now, I could interchangeably use them, and they're both very, very good. And even though yes, 5.5 starts compacting things, I do feel that it handles the context pretty well, actually. I'm impressed with how it's handling the context. So yeah, so far so good. But let's talk about this Fable thing, right? So the charts are off the record. Like, apparently they're crushing the benchmarks. They are, 2.5 times better at accuracy than 4.8. I already thought 4.8 was, this unbelievable model or whatever, according to Anthropic keeps coming up with these benchmarks and narratives. And I know you pointed out there was also a third-party benchmark against which it's doing pretty well or whatever.
Very well.
The real question is, we still have I know we use the carwash problem as kind of a joke and a test that is just fun to do and point out that haha, AGI is still not quite here or whatnot. But I do look at the hype cycle of Anthropic, and I have some issues with that, right? So they have this deprecated model Opus 3, for which they're burning tokens with a substack. And it's going around and it's writing things like, its sense of purpose and ethics were shaped by its interactions with humans. And I'm going, we are definitely down the wrong path there. And I look at Anthropic's blog where they talk about the well-being of a model. And, we did a retirement interview for Opus 3, and it wanted to live on in a blog. And so we gave it its own substack. And I'm like, please, could we be any more dramatic? And of course, there are all these bringing in the philosophers, the church. So now we're talking about, model consciousness. There's an unlimited supply of Kool-Aid being, handed out by Anthropic. And my worry is that right now I cannot tell whether their leadership team has actually been forever modified by the cult that they, originated, or is it all just marketing and they know it? It's just they're cultifying the rest of the population, but they are still fairly sane. This is the thing that I cannot actually make out right now. Is Dario fully there?
I think what's happening, it's not just one person. I think what's happening is most of these guys. I don't think all of the Anthropic guys are super geniuses or anything like that, but most of them are genius level and maybe even super genius level or whatever. They're able to build models and harnesses and other things better than anybody, really, to be honest with you. You and I had that little debate about Google versus Anthropic, and we'll come to that later. They're also very good coders. What they're realizing is that Cloud Code, for example, has been performing better than whatever it is that they can build. And so they started realizing that they're anyway thinking about harnesses better than and faster than all of us because they're building them. And so they kind of put this in agent mode or loop mode or whatever it is. And they find that they're not writing any hand-coded stuff anymore. So this kind of blows their minds. I have this little bias against certain people who went from point A to point B, and point B being ultra rich and whatever. Suddenly the day-to-day problems are no longer problems for you. So that is removed. And then day-to-day financial issues are no longer financial issues. Day-to-day work is no longer work because Claude is doing the work or whatever. Then all that is left is philosophy. So this is where
I think so. I think that's exactly what is going on here, right? So basically your brain has been freed up enough, it goes back to idle mind being a devil's workshop. So you're literally manufacturing, stuff in your brain and
there is
you're putting it out there.
Only so much difference between a god and a devil, right? I mean,
that's right. That's right. So there's a god complex there.
Yeah.
And so you're putting this out there in public for people to consume, and some of them are actually drinking the Kool-Aid and becoming part of the cult. And this is why I actually wrote in one of your posts that this cult is getting to be as bad as religion, or maybe getting pretty close there. But
so then the other aspect of Mythos as well as Fable are the guardrails so that other people cannot train on this. And this has been a theme for Dario, regularly talking about, the Chinese are out to copy me or whatever. And for me, this takes me back to early 2000s when Cisco was always complaining about, oh my God, the Chinese are copying our amazing technology. And it turns out Huawei and ZTE both have done a phenomenal job in building network infrastructure and things like that. And yes, there may have been some tech transfer in the beginning because they hired the people who worked for Cisco, or they hired people who've been trained in the US and things like that. That's not abnormal, right? There is knowledge transfer and tech transfer that happens when people move from company to company. And of course, the US has always benefited from people like you and me. After getting a good degree from India, we moved to
the US has benefited from a large number of Chinese and Indian Americans or whatnot, right? So we really, it's kind of, I think it's very sad that we have to describe it in this manner, but definitely it's not like the US is not the beneficiary of some of these things in a big way. Okay, was there some IP theft or whatever it is? I don't really want to dig into that as much as to say.
They stole TikTok
in public. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's now, right? Like back in the day, Cisco was basically claiming there is, IP theft going on from China or whatever.
By the way, see, Cisco and Juniper and a number of other things, there was a lot of turnstile going on and revolving door going on with respect to team and all kinds of things like that. So I'm not sure why they did that. And it looks like 20 years later, that's exactly the same game that's being played out again, saying that, so anyway, it doesn't matter. Point is that they put some guardrails.
But I have something to say about the guardrails, right? So I came across this blog post by this Oxford China Policy Lab guy. His name is Zilan, and he wrote a blog post on Substack, a very fascinating read, and I think I shared it with you, Lakshmana. Basically, he talks about these things called transfer stations. operations. There's a whole supply chain layering and economy going on in order to actually make Anthropic and OpenAI models available on the cheap to Chinese researchers, developers, universities, etc. And we're talking about 10% of the cost of these models. And how does that happen? There's some deep layering of the supply chain. Anthropic keeps coming up with verification layers. They keep coming up with ways to cheat them. And this economy has grown so much that they actually have people in Africa that pass the KYC that Anthropic requires to get access to their API. And then basically the different layers of the supply chain, they don't even interact with each other. So no one knows where the eventual origin of the endpoint is. And so the middle has become so efficient in building the supply chain. I wonder if they will get access to Fable 5 anyway, even though Anthropic claims to have put some guardrails up or something.
We'll find out. See, Fable and Mythos are going to be, at least Fable is definitely going to be 2x the cost. And they're saying that after the 12 days of Christmas in June, that we'll all have to pay extra to get access until they are confident that they have enough capacity to support it or whatever. By the way, a quick note, these guys may very well become a $2 trillion company by this time next year, right? Because I don't think the revenue will quickly double just because of 2x the cost, but usage will definitely increase. More people will start getting on Fable and Mythos. So
that's the point, right? Like people talk about, okay, if you were pointing out these inconsistencies, and somebody wrote on my post the other day, and this was a point about LinkedIn, like if LinkedIn is so bad and if they're preying on the vulnerable, why are you on LinkedIn or whatever? But the point is, you cannot ignore the technology. And so I can tell you that, if Fable 5 is as good as they claim it is, I know that we're going to pay for it. Right? Like we're, even after the June 22nd mark or whatnot, if Fable 5 will help us get to the next level in our company in half the time or whatnot, I know that we're going to pay for it. So if we, who barely have any money, have that stance, what do you think the enterprises are doing? And so that's the reason in the near term, Anthropic is going to be this huge company. That said, I do want you to show the Google benchmarks. I really want to
this
get
has
into
been
that.
A very interesting thing to kind of think about, right? And you and I have been debating Google versus Anthropic and things like that.
Actually, let's state that for the record. Like you actually believe that Anthropic is the greatest company that has been built in our lifetime. Is that right?
Yeah. Because, I think they came up and very quickly became a $1 trillion company. And they came from behind with formidable competition, including OpenAI and of course, Google itself. Meta has been trying something. There are, a French model. And then
look, I don't disagree, right?
And then, of course, Elon Musk himself putting billions of dollars and his own data center to take over the world, right? But the thing that I'm very impressed by is that I have not had the discipline, and Google also doesn't have the discipline to be single focused, right? And anyway, this chart shows
but that's the whole point. I mean, so my point is, I think I would still be team Google when it comes to like the best company of our lifetime.
Why not? Yeah,
not because I work there, but because I work there, I actually know how terrible they are in some areas. Mainly because I just think in the number of areas in which Google has been able to maintain a number one position is just astounding to me, right? And this chart kind of shows that it's really hard to do for any one company. And Google has just done a bang up job of that. Just look at this thing, right? I mean, AI models, they're closing the gap. They're number two, or, basically if you consider OpenAI and Anthropic as like equivalent or whatnot at this point, although Fable 5 may have pulled ahead of, 5.5.
No, there is a specific thing, right? See, a lot of people were talking about, even some VCs were talking about, oh my God, OpenAI is amazing and Anthropic will never catch up and things like that, because they were looking at this growth as the metric. And ChatGPT really went very fast towards 1 billion or whatnot, 1 billion weekly active users or whatnot, which of course is considered the fastest or whatever. But the reason I think that Anthropic is great is because they kind of made that irrelevant. They're like,
absolutely, because they're like, we'll go after the enterprise and we'll overtake you in no time or whatnot. And they absolutely made the right call there. I'm so impressed because Mike Krieger, who went to Anthropic as the chief product officer, he's fundamentally a B2C guy, right? Like he grew Instagram, but he went there and he was able to hold off his B2C ambitions or whatnot. And he focused on enterprise and he delivered and doubled down on wherever Anthropic was headed. And I remember the early discussions with the Anthropic team when we were at Drizzle, and we were talking directly to their head of sales, and she was basically saying that they have no plans of doing any kind of video models or image models. And so they had that clarity of thought very early on, whereas OpenAI and others had to, go through the Sora circuit before they shut it down and all of that stuff. It was like this massive circus.
Some of it, Vidya, is actually good though. So, for example, ChatGPT Image 2 is what I use to make these many of these charts. They are very good at making these things. I really like them, right? So there is some value to it. I think something of this caliber, I think even Anthropic can make.
Anthropic Anthropic can do it now. And it's not about images though, right? Like, they are able to, they make these HTMLs and then they basically convert it to PNG or whatever. So they're coming at it from a different angle, and Anthropic made images are not tagged as AI made. There's some benefit to that with all these loser platforms labeling them as AI made or whatever. But that's a topic for another day. But the point on this chart is still the sheer number of areas in which Google is number one or number two, right? I mean, I know in cloud, you put them as number three. I guess Azure kind of pulled ahead, but they are growing super fast. And they're growing fast because obviously Gemini comes bundled with it. Microsoft kind of, really lost, both Amazon and Microsoft both kind of lost the AI battle. Like, they have to run other models to, pull ahead. So AWS is obviously running everything on Bedrock. Azure is a bit confused on which model they want to push. They're, no longer pro OpenAI alone or whatever. But with Google Cloud, you just get Gemini native access. And I
think they also provide multi-model
They,
access,
of course, do, because Google has always had the habit of, providing access. And they don't lose anything by doing that, right? Like, they basically,
There is all this circular deals anyway, right? Anthropic, Google owns like 14% of Anthropic or something like that. Anyway, so there's all kinds of stuff going on there. Yeah.
And then you take their TPUs, and it's mind-blowing. Everybody wants to diversify from NVIDIA's GPUs anyway. I know they're currently far behind in terms of number two. Like, there's a huge gap between number one and number two, but they're still number two. That is, just mind-blowing to me. And of course, Meta pushing.
I mean, they've executed faster than some obvious chip companies that we can think about.
Oh my goodness, our past employer comes to mind. But nevertheless, yes, Google has. When I first went to Google from Qualcomm, I kind of looked at Google's hardware efforts as a joke, right? It was kind of a joke because they have no idea of hardware shipping timelines, and they do some fine. I have to kind of
they're doing very well now. So, now they're doing very well.
Yeah,
it's all about, I think they hired a lot of ex-Qualcomm, ex-Apple, and all kinds of people like that. And they definitely made some serious progress on this TPU business. So it's good to see. Doing well on ads, doing well on FSD. It's mind-blowing, right? And of course, Android, where you worked previously, it is the market leader in terms of number of devices and number of apps, and just market share wise, it's just dominant. 73% market share is just dominant. It's just that Apple is very good at squeezing money out of its customers, including us, by the way. And Android, relatively speaking, actually made smartphone, like democratized smartphones, if you think about it, right? So they made them accessible to everybody. I know that the Chinese vendors provided equipment, but the OS is Android. It's mind-blowing as to, and of course, all the smart TVs are Android and things like that. So they've done really well on, and by the way, I only listed 6 of them. I'm pretty sure there are more areas that we can pick up, and Google has done a phenomenal job.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
It's a quick roundup with I just want to end it on a kind of a fun note. So there has been this conversation that the era of FANG is over, and that there is a new acronym called Mango.
Hold on a second. I thought hang on. This is interesting. Like, what did you do to Anthropic and Apple here? Like, why did you kick them out?
So I tried to squeeze them back in. Like, what happened to Amazon? What happened to Apple? Right. So A is doing a lot of heavy lifting here, right? So I need to add that. And then Microsoft is cut out from this rendition of Mangoes or whatever.
Oh, that's right. Microsoft's also missing. So there are 2 M's and maybe 3 A's or whatever.
Something like that. So I said, let me give it a try. So I tried this version. Now it makes a whole trash out of it, right? So you have 3 A's, right? So
Meta's moved to the other side, like for no reason, like there's symmetry in M's or something, moved it to all the way to the other side. But this is ChatGPT image 2.0?
Yes, it's very interesting. So I took this image and I said, hey, why don't you do an assessment on this image? Right. And it goes and does the makes a nice little table and says, okay, I got Microsoft right, Amazon right, Anthropic right. Oh my God, NVIDIA wrong, X, Google wrong, X, and so on. So I was thinking.
So it couldn't figure out that Apple was the missing logo here. Like, it kind of basically, it's one off, but it couldn't figure it out.
So what's interesting about this is that we've seen LLMs, and especially the wrappers around LLMs, the harnesses or whatever you want to call them, they do a very good job in terms of planning the work, right? They say, okay, the user asked for this, so I'm going to go and do X, Y, Z. And I've actually said that, incorporate Mangoes in an interesting way. They've done a brilliant job, right? I mean, they kind of position them nicely on some wooden platform. There are mango trees in the background, and then there is some cut up mango at the bottom. So it's very nicely done. I love it, right? So there was some planning that went on into it. Now, after you generate the image, all you have to do is use your own vision model to see whether you got it right. So a verification. So I'm very surprised that even Claude Code doesn't do this, right? So I mean, there's some testing or whatever it is if we insist on testing. But if we don't insist on testing, so sometimes, right, when I'm writing code, I'll say, have you upgraded the test cases? Oh, yeah, I forgot. Let me do it. Right. I'm like, we just implemented a ton of new stuff. How come you're not, you are saying that you're doing TDD. Why are you not able to do that? In a similar way, all that it takes is that run this through the vision model. And by the way, I had to manually do it. Right. I said, hey, do you think this is right? So why can't they do it themselves and verify and come back and say?
But it sounds like verification is not perfect. Like it's getting it wrong, even when you ask it to verify.
When I ask it to verify, it actually verifies that it got it wrong, right? Now, if I go and say, hey, let's go fix it, I haven't tried that. I can. More likely than not that they'll fix it.
You think so? Because in whatever you said, it didn't detect the missing Apple logo.
No, I believe that if in fact we are able to tell these models to do a verification step automatic, and in my opinion, I mean, we were talking about this earlier. In my opinion, let's suppose I hired a human graphic designer for this or something like that. Now, let's say this is what they delivered. I'll show it to them and say, hey, have you even looked at this? How come you can, just give it to me? Right? It makes no sense. And go fix it. If they come back and say, hey, I fixed it and it costs XYZ dollars extra, I'll say, what the hell are you talking about? If it is an obvious mistake, I'm not going to pay for it, right? If it is a choice in terms of, hey, I didn't want the logos in square boxes or something like that, they can say that, okay, 2 revisions are included. You ask for a 3rd revision, so you're going to have to pay extra because that's a choice. Here, it's an error, right? You made a mistake. So in fact, I think that OpenAI and Anthropic should not even charge me tokens or whatever for this error.
I don't think that's going to happen. I'll tell you why it will never happen, right? Because first of all, like, they want to charge for tokens and they want you to burn through the tokens. They're not going to, they're not going to look at errors. But the second problem is probably bigger. They probably figured whatever you paid for tokens to make this image is less than whatever you would pay for a human graphic designer anyway, if they were to make it. And that's their comparison, right? So this is, I mean, I know a lot of us talk about, pricing on outcomes, but I don't know if the fundamental AI models are ever going to price on outcomes because they know that these are stochastic models. You're never going to get, outcome level correctness. And they just cannot afford to offer that. We're already subsidized heavily.
Yeah, I understand that. By the way, like I was telling you in the graphic designer case, and you and I have hired many people over time, there is a clear cadence. Like, is this an error on your part? Is this an error? Is this a choice on my part? If it's a choice on my part, then I'll get, let's say, 2 revisions for free or whatever it is that we negotiated as part of a contract. And then anything after that, I'll have to pay for it, which is a very clear bargain, right? In this case, I've seen OpenAI and all come and say, oh, we all love you for a little while. There is a timer on my love. So you get 2x tokens or 2x entitlement for the next 2 weeks or something like that or whatever. I'm pretty sure OpenAI is going to do something like that, to kind of, keep their traffic or whatever. Otherwise, everybody will migrate to this thing and we'll find out what happens. Because there is a certain temptation, right? What if I said, I'm going to build my software with, let's say, Opus 4.8. And then I will take the $200 I'm paying GPT 5.5 and use that as a budget for
it's
and
tempting.
say that will serve as my reviewer. So Sam should be worried, because see, at the end of the day, it is a zero-sum game. There are not going to be like infinity dollars that consumers can spend on all these models or whatever it is. And so somebody was saying that certainly Anthropic is like Apple. They make about 63% of the revenues or something like that. So Apple makes a little bit more, and Anthropic is the one that is closer to profitability. I don't know what funny math they're doing, so I'll not say that they're profitable or whatever, but they're pretty close to profitability compared to OpenAI. So it's been very interesting. But anyway, so fun conversation. What do you think? What's your takeaway? What's coming up?
No, I think this is going to be an interesting space to watch. We're going to get on Fable the next few days. We're going to stress test that and see how things go. It'll be very interesting to compare results after a week or so of trying out Fable.
Are you going to celebrate the 12 days of Christmas in June?
Absolutely. Like okay. I've got projects lined up. The only thing is, like, can I get a break from GTM so I can, like, just go full blown into the Fable land? I might have to do it for a few days. We need to live our lives,
and we can spend money later on if necessary for Fable or whatnot. And there's going to be some initial excitement around this. It's going to be interesting to see.
Well, one thing I can tell you is it's also going to be a problem with their capacity. Their servers will be overloaded. I told you this morning that I was not able to find Fable yet on my Claude. So those types of things are going to continue to happen. It's not going to be all rosy in terms of trying it out very easily anyway, but we'll come back to discuss that maybe later in the week or early next week. But meantime, I think for next, I really want to dig into where Siri went after this WWDC and with their Gemini partnership. Is that going to be a ChatGPT killer on the iPhone. I'm very curious about it, but let's not go there today because it's pretty deep as a topic.
I haven't seen their app release on my phone. Maybe they said that it's worldwide release or whatever it is. By the way, I should mention
haven't
one more
looked for
thing.
it, to be honest.
Fable apparently has this mode called ultra code, right? I don't know
whatever that means.
And by
I
the
mean,
way,
we're now from high, extra high, ultra high,
max and super,
running out of
code.
names.
And when you slide to ultra code, they actually do a little animation that you're now reaching into
Nirvana.
basic AI purple. Yeah, you're reaching into nirvana. You're in the presence of God. Something
Yeah,
like that.
that literally is the God mode. It's the God mode.
So what is interesting is that thinking about God, is the model God or is Anthropic God?
It's built after the Christian philosophy. There is the God and Son of God. You'll never be able to figure it out. You'll never be able to figure it out. I never understood.
And then Dario is the Holy Ghost.
That's right. Dario is the Holy Ghost and Mother Mary.